Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and I just want to start this video by reassuring you all that, it is okay from time to time to say or do silly things. Heaven knows I've been guilty of that in the past. It's probably how I ended up married. But it's also important to know that if you are somebody who's got a large public platform and you hold yourself up as an expert, when you do or say some of these silly things, it's only right that other people hold your toes to the fire and critique what you are saying or doing. For example, you wouldn't want this guy here running around teaching geography unchecked in your local high school.
How can somebody on the North Pole and the South Pole both stand upright? It doesn't make sense, does it?
Now, recently in the UK, Real World Member of Parliament Andrew Bridgen has put together a team of experts of his own, and these experts do tend to have quite a large public following. But the problem is they are saying some pretty questionable things. So in this video, we are going to examine some of the questionable things that these experts are saying. We have seen some of them before. And then at the end of the video, we might put them all together in a song just for fun. But in the spirit of just being a good sport, I would like to point out this tweet here by Andrew Bridgen. He is standing for re-election next week, and this is his public address. He has asked people to share it far and wide. So just to show what a good sport I am, if you check out the description to this video, you will see that I have forgotten to link his address in there. Now, to be fair to Andrew Bridgen, he is a legitimate member of Parliament, and he did do a lot of good when it come to exposing what was going on with the Horizon Post Office scandal, and for that you have to give the man credit. But despite that, he started to hit the headlines more and more often for his views on the COVID vaccine, with his own wife even calling him out and saying that he'd been radicalised by anti-vaxxers. But then things, in my opinion, really started to head south for Andrew Bridgen when he decided to appear on an interview with Jim Ferguson. Now, I'm not quite sure exactly who Jim Ferguson is. I'm not sure whether he's a real serious journalist or whether he's playing some kind of parody comedy character like Alan Partridge. And that's largely due to some of the strange things he says. For example, in this clip here, where he's claiming that a new mRNA vaccine is going to turn people into something called a replicon.
So that will be the term used to describe the people who are replicating this mRNA and sharing it all over the place. They will be presumably known as replicons.
So I reached out to Jim Ferguson to ask him about the content of his podcast, but unfortunately he blocked me. Anyway, he didn't block Real World Member of Parliament Andrew Bridgen, who went onto his show and then amazingly seemed to accept that it was credible to suggest that Bill Gates was running some kind of global depopulation program. And I know how astonishingly stupid that sounds. In fact, it sounds exactly like this.
We believe that eugenics, or I should say the darker side of eugenics, is playing a part. People like Bill Gates, they believe there's too many people and too few resources.
It's difficult when you see everything that's going on come to any other conclusion. I think, as unpalatable as that is, I always think we have to live in the world how it is, not how we'd like it to be. And that would appear to me to be a very credible explanation.
Now, he is entitled to his beliefs, of course, however ridiculous they sound, but he didn't want to stop there. He wanted to assemble his own team of world experts to place them in front of the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Mark Rowley, so they could present him with the evidence of this heinous crime.
Well, I actually will share with you, Jim, which is not publicised yet. I actually wrote on Monday to Mark Rowley, the Commissioner for the Metropolitan Police, and I've asked for a 3-hour meeting where I'll bring 15 world experts and whistleblowers who will lay out the evidence that criminal activity is being conducted by those at the top of government and in the civil servants.
So here is a list, and I promise you now, when we start to examine some of the experts on that list and some of the things they say and do, it's going to make this guy start to seem a whole lot more credible.
When you got to the airport, the runway was flat, wasn't it? But you can't have flat runways on a ball, can you?
For example, world expert number 1 is Matt Le Tissier, the retired football player. Now, Matt Le Tissier has no background in science, epidemiology, statistics, politics, or anything that might make him a useful person to place in front of the Commissioner of the Police to blow the lid off of Bill Gates' World Depopulation Program. And I know I can't even believe these words are coming out of my mouth. But what Matt Le Tissier does seem to do is enjoy a bit of numerology. A number of times he's been on the channel owned by Tom Numbers, where Tom seems to suggest that he can explain the universe using a mix of numbers and references to the flux capacitor from Back to the Future.
This is the one we got, boys. So yesterday, so if you can see that, the Arcturian Council 215 comes to Inspector Clueless. So that was yesterday's paper. But if you just do Arcturian Council, it takes us back to 182, which is Matt and my topic we always talk about is the flux capacitor. And you're talking about it being time travel and being affecting time. So I think, Matt, when we were getting the flux capacitor stuff over the last few months, 182, that comes to Arcturian Council, and it's like, why did I get that? Why did you get that? Why did we get the synchronicity between ourselves? And why are we here with Mark and with Ricky? And we've seen ships, and it's like we're all connected.
Matt, have you seen ships?
Not clearly. I do in the summer. I do like sit out in the garden on my hammock and just have a look up at the stars.
It's quite something, isn't it? I'm really not sure how I feel after seeing something like that.
It didn't affect my brain.
Well, it did mine, and I reached out to Tom Numbers to ask him about how the flux capacitor from the Back to the Future films could somehow explain the universe, but, you know, he blocked me. So instead I reached out to Matt Letizia himself, and I asked him, what makes him such an expert? Somebody that should be placed on Andrew Bridgen's list to go and stand in front of the Commissioner of the Police. But he blocked me. So next up is Milton Keynes funeral director John O Looney. He is exactly the type of person I would expect to see on Andrew Bridgen's list of experts. His credentials are fantastic. For example, when the COVID pandemic first started, he claimed COVID wasn't real, until he then caught it and ended up in ICU. Since then, he's made some fantastical comments, such as this one here, where he claims he's going to buy a UV torch because COVID vaccinated people for some reason might just illuminate, and it might be the mark of the beast. And at this point, I've just got to confirm that however this sounds, I am not taking the piss. This is genuine. A real world member of Parliament wants to take Matt Letizia, the retired footballer who's now into numerology, John O Looney, a man that thinks that the mark of the beast is shown by COVID vaccinated people illuminating under UV light. He wants to take these people and put them in front of the Commissioner of the Police to uncover a global depopulation agenda that's being driven by Bill Gates. This is actually happening. Now, I will admit that this does make me a little bit more nostalgic for the old days when I used to just look at silly conspiracy theories that weren't being driven by politicians with followings of hundreds of thousands of people. Stuff like this.
You might be saying, that guy, why would they even invent gravity then? Why is there mass? What is this shit about mass?
Anyway, not only did John O Looney not think COVID was real until he caught it and ended up in ICU, not only does he think that COVID vaccinated people might illuminate under UV light, but it turns out that John O Looney was also told by some random guy in a hospital mortuary that the pandemic was going to happen before it ever even arrived.
So they opened this viewing room door where usually they would lay people out for loved ones to see them, and it was full of like a great big inflatable pandemic tent. And I kind of said, well, what's that? And he kind of said, well, it's a pandemic tent. And I said, well, what's that for? And he didn't use the word COVID, but he told me there was something nasty coming, but they were warned that there was something coming.
Now, this claim by people in this kind of anti-COVID vaccine circle that they were informed about the pandemic before it ever happened is actually not a unique one. We've heard John O Looney say it there. We have Mark Atwood alluding to it here.
I'm just an ordinary bloke, but when COVID hit, I knew it was fake. I knew it was coming. How? Well, you know, I've done about 500 hours of videos in the last 2.5 years that kind of explain how.
And we will be examining some of Mark Atwood's claims in future videos. And we even have the man himself, Andrew Bridgen, saying this.
Basically, I've had some friends and in London who are based in London, and they were very, very close to someone who'd very recently or imminently had retired from one of the American 3-letter services, and he said, we're going to have a pandemic. this is in August 19. We're going to have a pandemic, and he told them, and you shouldn't be taking any of the so-called vaccines or using any of the tests, the PCR tests.
And of course, Andrew Bridgen, we believe you wholeheartedly because we know you never lie. Ever. Anyway, I did ask John O Looney about his claims that vaccinated people might illuminate under UV light, but he blocked me. Now, next up is Dr. David Cartland, a man who cuts quite a controversial figure on Twitter for sure. For example, here he is posting about chemtrails, and here he is, for some reason, just posting a video of the clouds. But if Dr. David Cartland has more distasteful conspiratorial beliefs that he's perhaps trying to keep secret, then maybe he said the quiet part out loud when he made this tweet here. Here we can see him posting a link to an article in which the first paragraph seems to support claims by conspiracy theorist Richard D. Hall that the Manchester Arena terrorist attack never actually happened. Now, this seems a particularly distasteful thing to do, and I have no idea why Dr. David Cartland would even dream of posting something like that out there. So I did reach out to him on Twitter to ask him about some of his activities on that platform, but he blocked me. Anyway, next up is my personal favourite. It's Mark Sexton, and I actually really like the guy. He seems harmless enough. His superpower seems to be knowing the time and knowing the date, and he is really good at it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday, the 1st of March 2024. My name is Mark Sexton, a former police officer from Birmingham. It is 4:30 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday, March the 4th, and it's 7 p.m. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, the 29th of February 2024. It is 5:40 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Sunday, the 3rd of March 2024, and it's 2 p.m. Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, the 13th of March 2024, and it is 8 p.m.
Anyway, now we're all caught up, but unfortunately it does seem that Andrew Bridgen's ragtag team of pound shop Avengers isn't really appealing to Mark Rowley, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, and he's just not taking them seriously.
The officers who are dealing with this at the moment have made it clear to me they will not be asking the office for Sir Mark Rowley or Mark Rowley Direct to respond to the letter that Andrew Bridgen wrote on our behalf.
So to help, and of course that is what I'm here for, we need to highlight the superpowers of the next member of Andrew Bridgen's team. A lady who, she's going to be an absolute game changer. She has all of the credentials to be the greatest expert on Andrew Bridgen's list. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you Jackie Devoy. Now, Jackie Devoy is an excellent podcaster. Recently, she actually interviewed Dr. David Cartland that we mentioned earlier on. And it was a thing of beauty. I've clipped what I think is my own personal favourite highlight here, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It's good times.
So you two have met before, have you? Yeah, I mean he's one of a very few. Surprisingly, it always surprises me.
Yeah, so good. So good. Anyway, as an expert for Andrew Bridgen, you may think that Jackie Devoy also thinks, how should we say, outside of the box. Yeah, here is Andrew Bridgen's expert saying COVID doesn't exist and 5G is dangerous. Here's Andrew Bridgen's expert saying people are injected with electromagnetic devices and that these are somehow bioweapons. Here's Andrew Bridgen's expert talking about the power of black magic and how she's experienced psychic attacks. Here's Andrew Bridgen's expert posting about chemtrails. And here's Andrew Bridgen's expert saying that the most successful lies ever told are that the Earth is a spinning ball in space and that evolution is true. So I reached out to Jackie Devoy on Twitter to ask her about her flat Earth beliefs, and to my surprise, she didn't block me.
Yes.
I know. Check out her reply. Yeah, so it's pretty obvious from this reply here that Jackie Devoy has all of the qualities that we will come to expect from somebody who is named as a world expert on Andrew Bridgen's list. Anyway, Jackie Devoy, like I said, has her own show, and recently she brought a certain allegedly Dave on to talk.
Allegedly Dave, the legend himself. Here he is, coming on right now. Hi, Dave.
Hello. All right.
Now, if you don't know Allegedly Dave, he's quite the figure on the internet. I first came across him when he was carrying out a breatharian challenge, which basically means living off the air and not eating or drinking at all. Although I can't remember quite how that worked out for him.
Hello. So, day one of the Great Breatharian Experiment. I felt hungry, and I kept having a growly stomach for most of the day.
Oh yeah, he got really hungry and had a growly stomach. What a surprise. But allegedly Dave is not a man to give up easily, so he carried on with his breatharian challenge, and suddenly a growly stomach became the least of his problems.
What actually happened was I started suffering from dehydration.
To nobody's surprise, of course, and I think eventually the penny did start to drop that perhaps two of the most key important factors in somebody's diet are food and water.
I was feeling a bit odd, and I decided to do a run to the nearest town again, and I actually started feeling dizzy and lost energy, and kind of stopped and questioned whether I should carry on. I followed my intuition and turned back and decided to drink some water, which was the best decision I could have made, because on the way back I nearly collapsed.
Anyway, Jackie and Dave go on to have one of the conversations that you just now begin to expect would happen from somebody who is one of Andrew Bridgen's actual real world experts. And I keep having to pinch myself every time I say that, because I am not taking the piss. This is actually real. Andrew Bridgen wants to place this person, along with the others, in front of Mark Rowley, the Commissioner of the Police. So where did the conversation begin?
You've been on the show a couple of times, and we've talked about a lot of things. You and I first met probably chatting about flat Earth, I would say, back in around 2015, 16, around then.
Okay, so we have flat Earth. We'll give that a tick. What about the moon landings and 9/11?
You knew about the fake moon landings, obviously, before 9/11, or was that something that came after?
Yeah, we'll tick those off too. Now, what about the ISS and the ISS perhaps, being fake?
Of course, there's a lot of people who are open to various, so we say, conspiracy theories, such as the moon landings and 9/11, but they still believe that the International Space Station exists. Shall we enlighten them? Let's enlighten them about the Imagine Space Station, as they call it.
Bingo. Love it. Now, why does Jackie Devoy seem to think the ISS is fake? Well, as far as I understand, it's because she doesn't realise that when astronauts go to the ISS, they are capable of taking things with them. It seems to me that Jackie thinks when you are on the ISS, if you want something, you have to have it delivered to you by some kind of delivery service. I'm not explaining it very well, so let's hear it from Jackie herself.
Also, then you see them like playing the guitar or wearing a gorilla suit, and it's like, well, how did that get there? Who posted that? What kind of delivery service delivers to some machine that's going at 17,000 miles an hour?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So what we need now from Jackie and Dave is some kind of hard-hitting financial advice. They are exactly the pair of people that I would go to for advice on my mortgage.
So as a person with a mortgage, so anyone listening who's got a mortgage, is there anything they can do to make themselves better off? I mean, do people have to repay these mortgages? Because we're obviously told you've borrowed this amount of money, you now have to repay it times 100 because of the interest. Is this true? Do we have to pay it back, and do we have to pay interest?
Technically, no, not at all, because they never gave you anything. In fact, there was a court case where essentially every mortgage on the face of the earth was nullified, made null and void. And the bank's only defense was, well, the person's already been paying on it for 3 years, now he can't complain.
Now obviously this is nonsense, but I wanted to find out where the source of this rumour came from, and the closest thing I could find was this letter from the financial ombudsman here. And quite rightly, this letter highlights concerns that such silly arguments promoted on the internet are dangerous because they can mislead borrowers into wrongly thinking that their mortgage is simply not binding upon them, and in the event of a default, they are simply going to lose their home. So there we have it, another one of Andrew Bridgen's experts. But before we cut to the song, I do want to say something about Jackie Devoy. And I do feel really, really sorry for her. You see, it turns out that not so long ago, according to Jackie at least, she reached out to the one and only Dr. John Campbell. It seems that Dr. John Campbell invited her on his channel and then just ignored her, ghosted her, stopped replying. This must have been an extremely stressful and traumatic time for Jackie Devoy. After all, Dr. John Campbell has an enormous channel with enormous viewership. And the excitement of thinking that you could appear on a platform like that, only for it to be taken away without any kind of explanation whatsoever. I can only imagine what was going through her head. But she never moaned about it. I mean, she did mention it in this tweet here. And she did mention it in this tweet here. And she did mention it in this tweet here. And she did mention it in this tweet here. And she did mention it in this tweet here, and she did mention it in this tweet here, and she did mention it in this tweet here, and she did mention it in this tweet here, and yet she did mention it in this tweet here. Yeah, but other than that, I don't think she's really bothered. So I have taken Andrew Bridgen's experts and I put them together in a little song so we can remind ourselves what they're all about. I've called the song Andrew's Army. Here it is. It's not a masterpiece, but it is free. Enjoy. Oh, Andrew Bridgen, he's assembling his team. They're like the Avengers, if every Avenger was Mr. Bean. He put their names on a letter and mailed it to the police. But Sting never responded. Matt Letizier, tell me about numerology, and please tell me where and when exactly you became an expert in epidemiology. You sound so clever, man. I think that you should write a book. Ha! I'm only kidding. I really think you're numb as fuck. And here's Cartland now. He's staring at the clouds. He's getting all confused and saying the quiet part out loud. And here he is, making a fool of himself on Twitter. I gotta wonder, does he tweet from the shitter? Oh yeah, he's tweeting from the shitter. Allegedly on the shitter, allegedly on the shitter. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in everyone's life when they need to know the day and the time, and have I got the hero for you.
It is Friday the 1st of March 2024.
Who has got a calendar?
It is 4:30 p.m.
And watch.
March the 4th and it's 7 p.m.
Uses both at the same time. Imagine that, or watching the calendar at the same time. But ladies and gentlemen, not everybody has a watch. Not everybody has a calendar, but some people have a UV torch. John O Looney's on my porch and is holding up a torch. He says, I'm sorry it's so late, but I need to know, will you illuminate? If I shine it on you just like so, will you give off just some kind of glow? I need to know, why won't you glow? Why won't you glow? Jackie Devoy, I've got something to say to you. I heard about a funky thing I think that you could really use. It's called a spam folder. Now check in there and you might see an email from John Campbell.